For a reason, you want to hang and talk football for a couple hours. You're going to be on game day morning all weekend long, which is great. You clearly will sit and watch and unpack the teams that are playing this weekend. Yes. One of them is your hometown Detroitlions. Yeah. How do you feel about the way that this thing has been built in Detroit and just your relationship with that logo?
Yeah, it kind of bothers me, because I had to wait my whole childhood for them to be good. Now that I'm in the league, I'm in another Super Bowl contender. So selfishly, I'm kind of mad at them. You know what I mean? But in all realness, seeing what Dan Campbell has built, hearing what those guys say about him, Meek Robertson, former teammates out there. Pat O'Connor was my teammate at Eastern Michigan. Yeah. He's there with Detroit. And everybody says the same thing. They're like, I hope one day, you just get to, be able to be in that locker room with Coach Campbell. Like, he's incredible. They said he'll literally die for the players. Like, he lives by that. The things you see in the locker room post game and the interviews and everything, like, that's who he is. People kind of clowned him at first. They're like, the kneecaps and all this stuff is out of this world. But, like, he truly lives by that. Yep. And I know that for a fact. So it's incredible to see. And just for the city of Detroit, my mom was born, raised in Detroit. My, aunts and uncles. I grew up in Michigan, right down the street. It's incredible to see for the city because it's been some long years, and the Lions haven't won in a long time. And now you see the Pistons winning, the Red Wings are winning. Yeah, so I get to watch from a distance. Like, even the Tigers are back winning. I'm like, damn. I'm like, now I'm in Vegas. I was like, my whole childhood, I was in a tough place.
You can still appreciate.
Man, what would it mean if Maxx Crosby did come to Detroit? I think that's a question that everyone's been trying to answer or speculate. And, I know there's a lot of narratives out there with, needing more edge rushers to help facilitate a better Lions defense. But I wanted to comment on this. Like, you can tell that Crosby's, he's a little salty over the situation. Growing up as a Michigan native, Lions fan as a kid, enjoyed all the Detroit sports growing up in the area. And now he sees a Lions success and he's salty over it. Like he said, now that I'm in the league, they want to get good. They want to be Super Bowl contenders. But I really wanted to point out some things out of this video about Meek Robertson and the fact that, he's explaining, or communicating with Crosby about, the situation in Detroit and explaining to Maxx, how Dan Campbell is the most authentic, genuine dude that there is. I mean, he's the best coach to play for. And there was a little tidbit in there that Maxx had said that caught my ear. And that was Meek saying, hopefully you get the chance to play for Dan Campbell and be in that locker room. So if there's ever been a conversation about Maxx wanting to leave the Raiders, and if the Raiders do go through some sort of a full rebuild and he doesn't want to go through it, if Ben Johnson ends up as a Raider and, decides, hey, don't really need you, you're better off in Detroit. All of those situations, are very difficult to navigate. Bringing Maxx Crosby to Detroit has never been, in my opinion, a top priority, cap-wise for the Detroit Lions. Doesn't mean he's not a great player. Doesn't mean that he can't help Detroit. But I just think that it's too much cash, right? So at the end of the day, everybody would love to see Maxx in Detroit if the money was right, if the contract, fit what Detroit was about. We're at the top, on the mountaintop right now, and we're trying to get, onto the other side into a Super Bowl. It's a little too late, obviously, hoping and praying for all of these, high-profile players to come into Detroit. But maybe, just maybe, in 2025, there could be a communication between Maxx Crosby and Detroit. There could be an opportunity between Maxx Crosby and Detroit. Again, I think the money's going to have to be right. And honestly, I don't know of too many players that are willing to slash their contracts just to go have an opportunity to win a Super Bowl. Because at the end of the day, even if you were on the best team, right? If you look at where the Lions started this season and you lose 21 players to injury, that can happen any year. Any given moment, you can go from worst or first to worst and vice versa. So just because you're good this year doesn't mean you're going to be good next year. And just because you're healthy at the beginning of the season doesn't mean you're going to be healthy at the end of the season. But I thought this was a fun interview for Maxx. You should probably check it out online where you can watch the full video. But as he said, he's enjoyed his time with the Raiders. He's had, nothing bad to say about the Raiders. He just thinks that they've, had a lot of guys in the building with the Raiders that had that killer mentality. And this is what Robertson explained. Here, it's a lot of guys that have that mentality, that they play at a high level. They're always around the ball and the detail and the level of, the play that the Lions, embody is just hard-nosed football. And he just felt like it was a right fit for him. That was Meek Robertson, talking about, his transfer from the Raiders to Detroit, what he found. That's his style of play. Obviously, that is Maxx Crosby's style of play. Maxx fits Detroit to a T. He absolutely does. Always has. It's just a contract that I think has obviously held this back. And, when you hear from, some of your old teammates or your old coaches and they see you being very successful, some players are really happy for Amik Robertson, obviously. They're rooting for Amik or, their former teammate. They're rooting for the Lions. I'm sure Maxx Crosby's rooting for the Lions. But at the end of the day, who's going to root for Maxx Crosby if the Raiders just can't seem to figure it out? Probably nobody, right? I mean, everyone's rooting for the guy. I'm not going to throw shade on him. But if he stays a Raider, when is it going to turn around? And that's probably what he's thinking. Who's rooting for me? I want to win a Super Bowl. I want to get to that next level. Who's rooting for me? And that's why maybe he sees the grass is just a little bit greener right now in Detroit for the first time. I mean, his mother was born in Detroit. His aunts and his uncles all grew up in that area. He grew up in the area. It's incredible, obviously, to see Detroit having the success that they are. All of our teams are doing well. And Max is seeing that. He's seeing it from afar. He wants to be a part of it, right? He wants it. He wants in. He wants a slice of success. And whatever that is, there might be a possibility that Maxx Crosby finds his way to Detroit this season. But I'm not going to hold out hope that he's going to slash his contract just to be able to maybe have an opportunity in Detroit in 2025. But there you go. You guys take it for what you want. Did you find enough nuggets in what Max is saying here to think that even for a moment he would consider to play in Detroit in 2025?
You can do it!